This Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska for the first time since returning to office. On paper, it's a feel-out meeting, a chance to explore an end to Europe's deadliest war in decades. But on the ground, Ukraine says it's anything but that. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia is preparing new offensives and not for peace. He accuses Putin of getting ready for a major Russian push instead of stopping the war, and he may not be wrong. Take a look at these visuals on your screens right now. The video has been released by Russia's defense ministry. It shows what appears to be Russian troops waving their flag in the Ukrainian village of Yablonivka, which Russia said it had captured on August 9th. What is happening is that the Russian forces have made a sudden thrust into eastern Ukraine, that's near the mining town of Dobropilya, a move that may be designed to increase the pressure on Ukraine to cede land. As the US and Russian presidents prepare to meet, Ukraine's war map shows Russian troops advancing at least 10 kilometers in two prongs over recent days. It's one of the most dramatic gains in a year, part of a push to take all of Donetsk. Russia also claims to have captured another settlement in eastern Donetsk region. Russian forces say that they are launching strikes on the Ukrainian military in multiple directions, including Sumy, Kharkiv, and even Donetsk. Russian air forces attacked drones, missile forces and artillery units destroyed Ukrainian long-range drone assembly units and even storage sites. Ammunition depots were also not spared, and temporary deployment sites of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries. All of these came under Russian attack. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, on the same day, 137 clashes took place in frontline areas within the span of 24 hours, and that's according to some war experts. All this points to Russian aim to increase pressure on Kyiv to cede land, as US and Russian presidents prepare to meet this Friday in Alaska. Russian troops have advanced by at least 10 kilometers, roughly 6 miles north, in two prongs over recent days, part of a drive to gain full control of Donetsk. The advance reportedly is one of the most dramatic in the last year. They say that Russian forces are exploiting gaps in Ukraine's defenses, infiltrating deeper and seeking to quickly consolidate for further advances. Unconfirmed media reports also say that the Russian President Vladimir Putin has told Trump that he wants Ukraine to hand over parts of the Donetsk region that Russia does not currently control. There's no comment from Moscow on this as of now. Ukraine's military, for its part, insists that the situation is not a complete breakthrough, but look at what has happened in the past. Russian offensives have preceded negotiations, a pattern that now experts say is used by Russia to gain leverage at bargaining tables. A Russian breakthrough could come a sort of gift to Putin. That's during the negotiations, increasing pressure on Kyiv to make territorial concessions to avoid further losses. Yes, Ukraine right now is facing manpower shortage, but they're also hard at work to defend their cities. I'm talking about 4 heavily defended urban centers: Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Drusivka, and lastly, Kostyavtynivka. Russian forces would need to capture all these 4 urban places and the cities before claiming the rest of the region. These are the fortress cities that remain difficult for the Russians to take control of. Ukraine's general staff said its forces liberated 2 settlements in the Sumy region from the Russian troops. And earlier this week, Kyiv reported retaking Bezalevkia. And these are all small gains for Ukraine right now, but Kyiv is putting up a fight. Just yesterday, Ukrainian drones hit Russia's Orenburg helium plant, located in the city of Orenburg. This is the only facility in Russia which makes helium and is an important component for missile manufacturing, space technology, and the aviation industry. Orenburg Oblast borders Kazakhstan in southern Russia, with the helium plant situated about 1,200 kilometers from Ukraine's front line. So, it's fair to say that Ukraine delivered a big blow to the Russians. Meanwhile, that was about what is happening on the ground. Diplomacy continues amid the fighting. US President Donald Trump has said that Kyiv and Moscow will both have to cede land to end the war. And this week's Alaska talks, he says, will reveal whether Putin is willing to make a deal. Trump has described the meeting as a feel-out. He has predicted that he would know probably in the first 2 minutes itself if progress was possible, if there was a deal. He says he will tell Putin to end the war, but he also says that he will walk away. Those remarks have alarmed European capitals as well. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has warned against concessions before an unconditional ceasefire. Not just that, UK's Prime Minister as well as European leaders have similarly said that any peace must be built with Ukraine and not imposed on Kyiv. Germany, meanwhile, plans a virtual meeting of European leaders in a bid to discuss pressure on Russia before a Europe-US call with President Trump. NATO, EU and Ukrainian officials are also expected to join. But Washington has not disclosed any concrete territorial proposals or a mechanism to ensure the Russian compliance with any ceasefire that might be struck. As leaders prepare to meet in Alaska, lines are shifting on the ground, and Ukraine's fate may hinge on whether those shifts become leverage at the talks table or just precursors to a wider, bigger offensive. And for more on this, we were earlier joined by John Bolton, former National Security Advisor to US President Donald Trump during his first term, and he has also witnessed the Helsinki meet between Trump and Putin in 2018. We asked Ambassador Bolton about his perspective on the upcoming Alaska meet between Putin and Trump, and this is what he had to say.
Well, I think it's very close to a decision that Trump thinks that Putin's moving in the right direction. I think what Trump wants out of this meeting in Alaska is either some feeling that it's worth more of his time to try and negotiate a truce, a ceasefire, call it what you will, or whether it's time to back out entirely. So he's basically saying, if the offer looks fair, I'll pass it on to Zelensky and the Europeans. He doesn't say then he's going to continue to try and mediate or help reach a solution. He said, for example, the next meeting should be between Putin and Zelensky. I don't necessarily need to be there. So I think that while Trump is motivated by the feeling he may yet win a Nobel Peace Prize here, what he's really looking to do still is extricate himself from Ukraine because he sees in it failure. He said again yesterday, this is Biden's war, it's not my war. I think that his objective is either to get a ceasefire and therefore get a Nobel Peace Prize in his mind, or get out of it without any further damage to himself. Right. I think the meeting in Alaska is a win for Putin. I mean, he goes from being an international pariah, leading a rogue state that committed unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, to standing in the world spotlight, having his picture taken with the President of the United States. That's a big win for him right there. And I think he will use the opportunity to meet with Trump to try and work his KGB training on him further and see if he can't make steps toward the relationship they used to have, which in Trump's mind was that they were good friends. I think Putin pushed that envelope, whether intentionally or unintentionally, further than he intended, because in past several weeks, Trump has said repeatedly that he's disappointed with Putin, unhappy with him. And that's why some of the threats that were made about Russia, if it didn't come to a ceasefire, were made. So if Putin can roll that back, that's as big a victory for him as anything else. Well, I think Putin is very focused. He knows exactly what he thinks Russia's national interests are, and that's what he's pursuing. He sees this Alaska summit as a great opportunity for him to shape Trump's thinking on the state of play in Ukraine, and without Zelensky being there to contradict him. I think that's why the Europeans have moved to hold what they're calling a virtual summit on Wednesday, first with just European leaders, then with Trump and perhaps other Americans invited in to participate, so that they can try and have a word with him before he listens to Putin. But look, a virtual summit is a bunch of people looking at TV screens. It's not the same thing as being in the room with the person, and I think Putin knows that. We'll see how we won't see the pictures, of course, but it'll be interesting to hear reports on how long Trump's attention was maintained watching all these European leaders on a TV screen. Right. Well, this is something we actually saw earlier this year when Trump and Putin were speaking by phone, and it came at the time in late February in the Oval Office when Trump said to Zelensky, "You don't have any cards." I think Putin wants Trump in that same mood, and it certainly seems from Trump's comments yesterday that he's moving in that direction. He said he couldn't understand why Zelensky was having trouble with Ukraine's constitution, which prohibits ceding any land to any foreign power, and basically criticized Zelensky for his actions over the past 3.5 years of the war, as if Ukraine had started the war. I mean, that is the Russian position, essentially. And to hear the U.S. president say that's more than a little disturbing. Well, I think the dynamic will be largely Trump trying to play the role of leader of a great power, dealing with the leader of another great power, whereas what Putin's trying to do is advance his substantive agenda in Ukraine. Trump will be delighted with the press conference that will follow the meeting if the two of them stand together, as they did in Helsinki. Hundreds of reporters, dozens of television cameras. What better existence can Trump imagine? Uh, but I think he knows so little about Ukraine or Russia, even having been president for 4 years. Putin knows all that any leader can know about what he wants in Ukraine, and I think it's a mismatch in that regard. Trump will be willing to find areas of agreement because he thinks it'll help him get a Nobel Peace Prize, which is his ultimate objective. So we're going into it that Putin wants Ukraine and Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not a good look.